First look at this. There.
Back there, sorry.
No problem. One for you, one for me. Thank you, sir.
And some spares. Make sure Debbie gets one as well, if you don't mind, Jay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Want the extras?
I get it.
Oh, I can move.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I was really disappointed that this one
Good question.
did not make it.
I was too, but
He's a nice
I do not know you
I know
did, but I
he is.
enjoyed it.
I do, I know him, and he's very, he'd do well.
What, the husband and wife?
Well, there were two husband and wives, were there not?
And it's nice that he's
Two Moody's and two no, wait.
Okay.
Two Moody's, there was one other one.
That's me.
Let's see if I can figure this out. Moody.
You got the same number of votes,
Did
so.
you?
Okay.
No bragging
Just let me
rights in
know,
that
because I've already
family.
moved over once. Okay. See, one of mine made that cut.
You
I'll tell you
have.
guys.
Some people are definitely, they're more qualified for the job than I am.
I know. That's what it is. That's
So
what
you ought to take my
I
seat.
know. That's what I thought. Where are you a little bit? Why are we doing this? It's exactly what I thought.
Karen?
I didn't know if I knew you were there.
That's all right.
I'm trying to say
It's
there's
been
no
a
last name.
Monday for me. Always exciting.
Or
It's always exciting.
Bonnie, are you ready?
I think so, yeah.
Karen, we're ready.
Okay, all right, I guess the first thing we should tackle to make sure we get everything in order is the candidates that we've chosen for the comp plan committee. And we want to be sure and refer to those people still by number, not by name, even though we do have their names here. We're still referring to them as number.
that boom mic, I think you have to move away from that mic.
There's two. There you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, now that we've got rid of our hum, we've got the top 12. I think Evie forwarded or Vicki forwarded those to us, and everybody participated and got their vote in. I was the last one to get mine in, but I got in under the wire. All right, so y'all had time to look at it, and you're okay with it? And
Yeah, I'm really thrilled. I think it's a really good representation.
I think it is, but it's one that I'm disappointed that it didn't get on there. And it was number 21, because I was very happy to see a person in that category be interested in our city government, and always like to encourage people, young people. All right,
But
so
Chairman, if I could make a suggestion, perhaps that candidate might be a potential intern through the process. I don't know if that would be out of the order of recommendations, but it would seem that it would be certainly a learning opportunity for a young person.
well, we could think about it. I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but we want somebody that's going to be actively involved. And if they're just sitting there as an intern, they may be not as happy about not being able to participate. They might, I mean, it could be offered to them, I guess, but maybe as an alternate. Is that what we needed to pick some alternates, didn't we? Are these our alternates, the 13th, the 5 and 13th place?
Yeah, they're the 5 people that were actually in the 13th place.
Okay, so they would be our alternates if someone,
Oh, you know,
Perhaps
we
it's
talked about that, and you know, if we put 12, that's a lot. That is a whole
I
heck of a
think
lot
so,
of
too.
people. I think it's difficult to pick alternates because, you know, if you're an alternate on a jury, you sit through the whole trial. You're ready to take over. If we pick an alternate here and somebody falls
and
out
they
4 months into the
have to
process,
sit through it.
they're not ready to go.
No, they're not. All right, now, are you saying that you want to narrow this field down?
No, I think that field is good enough, but I don't think we need to. I
All of
think
them
if
at
2
one
or 3
time.
fall out, I think we're going to be just fine.
Right, because it is a
It's
lot.
still a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Is there anything
yes,
else
it
that'll come down the pike in the future? I hate turning down anybody who wants to volunteer for
I
something
know.
like this. And the question is there anything that'll come down the pike later on that, so I'm just trying to figure out something. It pains me to have to call anybody who wants to volunteer to do this stuff and say,
Well, that's life. I mean, they got to be put on,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's a diplomatic. Yeah, right.
I think they'll be okay. But
Okay,
I think
good.
we really appreciate
Right.
what you're saying, and I agree
Yeah.
with you 100%. I appreciate anyone who's willing to volunteer to do this, because it is not going to be something that, it's something that after a while, some people I think there may be somebody that may drop out, I don't know. But I think it can be a little dry at times. Of course, these folks probably have never been involved with it, so it will probably be maybe a little more interesting or challenging. And it is always interesting, but sometimes I think, if you're involved with it so much, it's not quite as, I guess, fresh in your mind.
I just had a couple little more thoughts, and I'll leave, because I don't think they make any difference, but I won't tell them to you anyway. With some people I figured, why am I on this committee? There was so much talent on some of these folks, it was crazy. I mean, they're majoring and stuff. But then on the other hand, one of these guys that didn't make it has come to the last 3 or 4 meetings and sat here during these things. And I thought, well, that's a shame. This guy's already participated in the process. He's been to all these meetings. And then there's also things like wanting to have a well-rounded group. So sometimes I saw somebody who might be a renter versus an owner of a home.
Right.
And those are the things I hate to see to lose too, because we really need to have that broad perspective of.
Right.
So, anyways, it was frustrating for me because I thought, I don't know. I thought it was going to be easy to do this, and it wasn't.
Well, I don't think we had it. To me, and I mentioned this at the last work session, it wasn't as broad a spectrum as I had hoped to have. I mean, diversity, or, in a way, I was a little disappointed because, particularly, I guess, from economic standpoint, we talked about that, and from the Eastern Precinct, not quite as many people put their name in the hat, but, nonetheless, we have the group, and I think we have what we have.
Yeah, and that was the hard part, because you're right, there was qualified people.
Right.
Of good income, and so there was that group. And then you really did want to have somebody from every precinct and every income level and every housing type. But
Because
that wasn't
income
the big diversity that I saw.
Yeah, income is certainly no qualification
No,
for anything.
I know.
There are many people I find that make large incomes, but certainly I don't feel like they have quite the, ability to work maybe so much with this type of thing. So, I mean, I'm thinking, the group that we have, it looks pretty good.
I agree.
I thought it looked pretty good. I don't know how everybody feels.
think
I'm
it's
all right with it.
There was nobody on there that I
They look
was
good.
directly against.
No,
I guess that's
me
really the
neither.
point. There was nobody that certainly wasn't the 12 that I voted for, that was close. But there was nobody in there I had any
Right.
heartburn with, and
I don't think
so,
we all got out
No.
choices, and I think that's, again, a democratic process.
I think it was a good group.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of the argument about, inclusiveness, hopefully the opportunity is going to be to include people along the way. And hopefully the letters that go out will show that they're very, very welcome and are encouraged to participate in the public forums. This is not just an end of their engagement, we would hope.
absolutely.
No,
We could
that's right.
reach out to them as well when we're starting the process.
Right.
If there's opportunity for the public to be there, which the public can always
Right.
be invited,
Mm-hmm.
to let them know
Yeah.
that we're having this meeting, so that they
That's
still
a good
feel
point.
like they're a part.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if they're really interested, they'll still continue to show up like this one fellow does.
Well, I do think that's an opportunity that, we haven't quite got to that point yet, but when you decide to notify the people who were not selected, I think in that ought to be some statement of the fact that we certainly would highly encourage you to participate
Come
in
to
the
the
process as it goes along,
Right.
and maybe something like, since we have their email address, that we'll send you an email, or we'll just send you something to make sure you know when those meetings are. No, we're just still trying to engage
them.
those folks,
Yep.
and I think that's a positive sense, that we still value your input.
Oh,
We had
yeah.
more than we could take, but don't fall off the list. I think
Right.
that probably makes some sense. One of
That's a
my
good
questions
idea.
was going to be, and again, I might be getting off on a tangent, since there really are two committees, there's a steering committee and the planning committee. And I've thought all weekend about how do we break the people up, and quite frankly, I haven't come up with an answer. There's two directions. One of them is to ask them what they'd like to do, which might be good, but then if we get, 11 volunteers for the steering committee and 1 for the planning committee, then we've got to disappoint people again.
Well, this one that you've been
Yeah.
working on is the community participation team.
The steering is more the,
Is more members of planning commission, other boards and commissions throughout the city.
I thought we were
city
talking about some members of
council.
the public on that.
You can, if you'd like.
I may
Historically, it's
have
not been that way.
misunderstood that. I may have misunderstood. That's fine,
However,
yeah.
I mean, the comprehensive plan by its inherent nature is a very inclusive
Yes,
process.
absolutely.
We want to include as many people as we can from as many backgrounds as we can,
I
and make
fully
sure that we're reaching everyone in the community.
Okay.
and we mentioned something, I don't know if at the last meeting, did we mention something about possibly on that steering committee, an EDA member?
I think we talked about both EDA and school board.
Didn't we mention
Yes,
something
I
about
believe
that?
we did. Yes.
Should we invite someone, ask them if they would like to send a representative or someone to be on that steering committee?
We could reach out to all the boards and commissions if y'all would like, and
Because,
and request.
they have an active, idea of this too. This would be good for them. I think we talked about that.
We did, we talked about it
And
briefly, and I
mentioned
think it's a very good idea, because I do think we want their participation.
ADA's economic development.
Uh-huh, and the school board, we mentioned the school board too.
Good idea, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just off the top of my head, we have the Wetlands Board, the Board of Zoning Appeals. Those are the more planning-centric. The Architectural Review Board, which one member's actually on y'all's list here from the Architectural Review Board. So that'll be nice to have on the community participation
What
team.
number is that?
19.
Yeah, okay.
And the school board, city council, of course, I think would be nice to have a member represented there. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and the library as an advisory board as well. So we have a great deal of interest represented through the boards and commissions that represent the city, and they could play an important role in the comp plan update.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
It may be that we would want to seek council's favorable nod if we're actually going to ask people like the school board and the library board, and even the EDA. I would like to make sure that they are in tune with what your goals are here,
Okay.
so that there's no misunderstanding between the planning committee, and the planning commission, and the city council.
Okay.
So I would think that maybe what we would do is send them a memo advising them of your plans. And you are scheduled to make appointments tonight, the citizens' appointments, and then we can just elaborate or expand that to city council by telling them that you would like to see these other boards and commissions possibly represented through this process. And let's just get a thumbs up from them if that's okay.
Fine, that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
They knew we were going through this application process for the citizens, but the one thing that I've learned is to keep the regulators, not the regulators, but the legislative body aware of the process
Sure.
and where we're at, so.
Because that's right, we're
No
recommending.
problem. I think
No
they meet on
problem.
Monday anyhow, won't they?
Pardon
They'll
me?
meet on Monday anyhow, won't they? Yeah. So it's very soon, it's not,
Yeah, no, that's
that makes sense.
no problem here.
That makes all the sense in the world.
And they can be appointed later on.
Yeah.
What we'll do is, we'll try to determine after we receive city council's reaction, staff will try to determine at that point how we want to approach these boards and commissions. And most likely what we'll do is we'll send a letter to the chairman of each of them, and then let them decide who they feel would be the best person to serve. So,
Right.
Because if you send them a letter and you have the vision of what we want to do in that letter, then hopefully they'll pick the appropriate person to match that. The person who's best suited to work in what we're telling them we want to do.
We mentioned too about the steering and the planning. Do y'all feel like there should be citizens on the steering? My personal opinion on that is I kind of feel like that should be the, more the city board members, yeah, because.
How about a quick refresh of 30 seconds on what you think, or what we think each of these two are? The steering committee versus, what are the roles of the two?
Well, the steering committee is kind of the guiding guiding force, I guess. And certainly some of these people that are going to serve, they're not going to really, I guess they're not going to know some of the things that we are privileged to. I mean, certainly by being participants as we have been, and so forth on some of the other boards. And they sort of bring, I guess, some perspective to it that the average citizen may not have, and kind of guide and not, just steer. I mean, that's what they're there for. It's a steering committee.
And then the other
to kind
committee
of
is
keep
the-
them on target, and
Right.
because you could get off on a lot of tangents.
agree with you on that. And then
I kind of
some-
felt like that should be just this. That's my feeling. I don't know.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
No, I agree.
I think it'd be better. Probably might be a little more direction for
Right.
for the citizens in case they get a little bit off. Maybe what's going on or what.
Okay, thanks.
I mean,
Right.
I just think
I agree
that
with
might
you.
be better. What do y'all?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing is that as the process goes along, there may be other questions that are raised that the steering committee has to
Could answer.
encourage the planning committee to continue to look into and work on.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, we can't kind of speculate, but you got to see how the process is going. And there may be thing raised at public meetings or whatever, that the steering committee is going to ask the planning committee to continue to pursue or follow up on, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And that's kind of what the steering committee is doing. It's,
I'm sitting here and kind of thinking things through as well. We're talking about having manageable numbers for both the steering committee and the citizens participation team. My question is that if we have representatives from the other boards and commissions, is this really broadening the number of people
Too many.
to too many? What I'm wondering if we shouldn't reach out to the boards and commissions and ask them to have a person on their body that is their spokesperson, and would be that person we would contact for various elements of the comprehensive plan, maybe bring them in at certain times.
When certain sections are discussed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that may be a good thought.
It's just something to throw
I think
out.
you're right.
Yeah, because there's certain areas that probably they wouldn't be as involved with.
Well, and I'm afraid that if we get too many people that's from the city itself, it looks like that they're actually guiding the process.
Right, and they're not, no.
Another opportunity would be, in terms of community engagement with our city organizations, we could have, we're sensing the city leadership opinions on the comprehensive plan, which could be a separate input into the steering committee. Because they've all been appointed, they're all fully engaged in the business of their city departments and their organizations, so are very knowledgeable. So it's almost like a little, a team of experts that could inform as part of that. And then the citizen engagement, I see them more reaching out to grassroots. And I think if we are to read the tone of the city from last year, there was a disconnect, and I think we owe it to folks to really do a good job at really reaching out to the grassroots, so that they feel as though there is a mechanism for input. And then that would be reporting back to the steering committee rather than coming back down. But I think if we structure the guidelines and the vision and the purpose of the comprehensive plan, we're not just opening up a box. There's certain parameters that we're working within. And if that can be articulated by Kevin, or, I mean, you've got the comprehensive plan, which aspects are we really looking at? I think it would be a much more, I think the process would have much more integrity, maybe, giving citizens an opportunity to really feel as though they have an opportunity to speak. And then, if no one shows up, forever hold your peace. I mean, we're giving them every opportunity.
It's kind of funny because I think that when that whole thing came up, in my eyes, the process is already in place, but nobody knows it. But the fact is, we can't sit there and say the process is already in place. It's a perception thing.
Right.
And I think the perception,
It
that
is.
seems to be the thing that needs to be cleaned up a bit, in my eyes. Because it's like,
It's always open, and particularly with
But-
this revision, or each year, the review of, I mean, each 5 years, the review of this has always been open to the public.
Right.
The ones I've participated in, because we've even had meetings at the high school with lots of public coming out. And,
Oh, Lord,
you know,
yes.
good gracious, and in this, you know, right in here in the meeting room. So, you know, but it's one thing to have things open, but it's another thing to make people participate.
exactly, and that's what happened now.
So sometimes, you know, you make them available, but some people don't participate until the old saying, their ox is gored, and then you participate. I've been involved with several situations here in the community years ago that I thought the people were not well informed, and on the other side of it. And I know how I became very active at that time, and you know, so we all tend to do that, myself included. But it's always open. It's open. Our meetings are open, and people don't come until there's a reason to come.
But you're right, this is a little bit
I've
of
been
extra,
there, done that.
a little extra touchy time, a little perception, a little bit this time around, because of what happened this last, you know.
Right.
So you're right, I think it's a good idea to make sure that, reiterate to these folks
Right.
that the process is open to them.
It's open, yeah. All right, so we feel like it may be better just to have a representative from the groups and just have them available if necessary. Is that what we're saying? Instead of like an active member each time. That gets to be a little bit too many, and you're right. The simpler, the better. And you don't want to get too much.
Imagine you can look at the plan and you can pretty much do a one-to-one match of the committees to certain chapters or something. I mean, it's pretty,
Yeah, I see, I mean, there's certainly a theme of expertise that's running through, although they're interrelated. You know, it became very, you know, for example, with the libraries, that be as part of the, you know, how to encourage more participation and at educational level. I mean, so that could be really a good connection there. So there could be that those experts sort of are within a topic area that's relevant to the chapter that we're dealing with at the, you know, in the comprehensive plan.
Definitely.
All right, so now y'all are going to take it from there. Anything else you want us to tell you what we want to do?
Great. I mean, once we have the committee members established this evening, like I said, we'll provide those names to the city council, and we'll just expand that to include the other.
Yeah, I still think it makes sense to tell city council that's the direction we want to go in and make sure that, as you say, there's no
Yeah.
sense of getting a hiccup
Absolutely.
4 months
Yeah.
down the road.
Right. Yeah, I would like to keep them as well apprised of this whole process as possible.
Yeah, it can't
so
be.
that there is no
right?
misunderstandings,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of work, and I certainly don't want to see the planning commission or the citizens, just their efforts not be.
No, you want to keep this as open as possible.
That's right. Now, from Planning Commission, are we going to have several members that will be involved with the steering committee? Are we going to be asking for volunteers, or that will be able to do it, or rotate, or how are we going to handle that? Rotate people through, or?
Whoever's not here tonight gets appointed.
I think Rich and, they're on the committee already.
I don't think rotation is good because the same reason you kind of
Right.
lose continuity.
Right.
So I personally, again, that's just a person, I think 3, maybe 4 at the max.
Yeah.
So that committee, the steering committee, is going to have 3 or 4 of us, and who else? Is that it?
Well, somebody from the
Well, I think we're going to remember the city council.
council, I guess.
At least that's what I had.
think
I
so.
know you have in the
Council,
past.
and if we really had to narrow it down to the most important, I get, are from a comp plan perspective, the members of appointed members of boards and commissions, the EDA would be very valuable. They have their own chapter, as well as their a theme throughout the comp plan as far as publicly held lands. So that would be very beneficial.
I
So
think so. I think we need someone from EDA.
Then so give me the total steering committee makeup as you see it.
Last time it was very planning commission heavy. I believe there were 5 planning commissioners. It was larger than what we're talking about this time. There may have been some community participants last time. You were here. I wasn't.
I tried to sleep through it all, so
Okay.
I don't remember.
That explains so
There were
much.
series of meetings that were held here, right here, and quite a bit of community participation each time.
Mhm.
I think Faye, myself, and I'm trying to think of who else was on. I know Faye and I
know you and Faye
did,
were.
we did, yeah.
I believe a couple EDA directors were on that last time, if memory serves.
And taking a step back, that was a big redo of the comprehensive plan, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah, so
that
this
was
This is minor surgery
mu-
for that, right?
much more elaborate than
Yeah.
what we anticipate this time.
Right. It was quite a redo. Yes, it was. It
You
certainly
may
was.
want to think about just starting with 3, and if there's a
Yeah.
need to expand it,
Mhm.
when you're talking about the steering committee, this is the planning commission's document. Well, it's the city's our citizens' document, but it's basically being authored by the planning commission. So from a steering committee standpoint, I would really prefer, or I would recommend, I'm not going to say prefer, but I would recommend that we just hold it to the planning commission members. I don't see a need in bringing other people in.
As a steering committee. Because it is our charge to do it.
Exactly.
That's true. I mean, that is true.
I think
We
too-
we could expand out, I guess. I don't know. I'm still
Well, no.
thinking the EDA would be
Well,
good.
you certainly want EDA participation.
I think so,
don't-
too.
Maybe not as a member of the committee, but certainly participation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're saying not to have a city council member on there? I think there has to be some liaison with city council. That became pretty obvious last Monday. So,
I think so, too.
you know, really, whether they be a member or there just be a liaison. I mean, there could be a liaison that sits in and listens and doesn't vote, doesn't participate, but helps to kind of keep the chain of communications flowing. And that would be perfectly satisfactory. But I think we might be missing an opportunity. And if city council says no, that's their call.
Yeah, that ends
Well,
it.
the avenue I think y'all have gone down now, it sounds like 5 for the steering committee, 3 planning commission members, an EDA director, and a member of city council.
I think that would be
that's
good.
a really great, tight group that
These people are totally
be very
the other
productive.
committee,
Right.
citizen
Right.
advisory.
Yes, yeah, and their primary charge, the community outreach team, would be facilitating strategies and means of getting the public involved in this process. And of course, their comments and participation to it will occur kind of as a result of their participation in that team. But they will be heavily involved in the process, but their primary charge is getting people involved.
Gus stepped out from it, we can make him that. Do you think it seems to me there's 2 issues at hand, right? One is what needs to be changed to the city comprehensive plan, right? I mean, if the city comprehensive plan was good, we could just say, bless it and be done. But there's some things that need to be updated. Do you think is that part of it something that maybe should be looked at by a few more people? And then to give the recommendation, in other words, what needs changing? That's my question. I don't really know, I haven't looked at it.
I think, of course, my guess would be, the way you would approach that, we have a number of sections in which you're going to want, hopefully we're going to get, citizen, and not just citizen, but business input. Let's not forget the business community, which may not be Poquoson citizens.
I see.
So we need to get inputs from those constituencies. I guess see what their inputs are,
Yeah.
and that kind of tells you whether you got changes or not. If the inputs are basically consistent with what's in there already, it may be, in some cases, it may be a very minor revision. In other cases, I think, if the inputs consistently, if the themes are somewhat different, then I think that they have to be addressed one way, shape, or form or another. So I think it's a little early to make that.
Well,
I don't think it should be up to us.
No,
to
I don't
decide.
necessarily think it should be either. All I getting at was like, if it ain't broke, don't mess with it, So who's going to determine if it's broke or not? That's the question I have.
It'd be interesting to hear what we get from in areas like recreation services and that sort of. I think it'd be really worthwhile to see what the community says. It's been a long time since we've done that.
And then something that just hit me when you were talking about the Economic Development Committee. There's people that don't live in York County that come here to do all their shopping. Some of the kids play in the Parks and Rec, and because I thought, that's not their. It's not their. I mean, this is our town, so to speak. But if you really want to know about what people use it for, do you include?
Well, I'm not
somebody
so
from
sure I would
York
care about the
County?
ones that are coming in to shop, but I would care about the ones that come here to run businesses.
Yeah,
If there are people, and I'm sure there are.
And I've coached plenty of kids in Parks and Rec things that the kids come from York County because they'd rather come here than drive them all the way up to York Middle School. Anyways, I know that's not the big thing of what we're tasked with, but nonetheless, it's almost like a fuzzy border when it comes down to all the things. Anyway, I don't want to make more work for us. I was just saying. I never thought about that until right now because you were mentioning that if you run a business in Poquoson, you care about what's going on.
And quite frankly, the business atmosphere is pretty important.
I would say.
So I think that they have to be included. Because that's thoughts we get into that later on, but I don't know quite how to do that.
I have two fundamental questions, which I'd hope would be researched. One is our demographics, our current demographics, and also how much acreage we have that is vacant land. And so those two things, I think, in terms of being stewards to the future, how is that going to drive our vision for the city? Do we want total build-out? And if so, what are our projections that might be? Because then we're dealing with, population issues and access and all of those things, quality of life issues. So, and I know it's a crystal ball and it's, very much driven by economics, but those I think would be two very interesting statistics, at least, that hopefully we'll have at our fingertips once we get going.
Absolutely, and that's why that those two things you just mentioned are mentioned in the first chapter of the comprehensive plan, because they do have so much impact on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good example right there of something that's changed, obviously. I mean, whatever happened 10 years ago, I'm sure those numbers aren't the same today.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see the difference between those.
And are we able to get data at the block level on the census data? Do you know?
Yes, we are. It's not. You can't get 100% of the data sets at the block level. You get all of that at the track level, but there are several data sets that are available at the block level.
So I get a sense, all cities are struggling with an aging population, and I get a sense that maybe we're heading in that direction also.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the things I was surprised to see. We didn't get that many participants in the 65 and over for the participation. So it's really how do we access those folks who might be important, participants in terms of what their needs might be going forward.
Absolutely, and in fact, in the Hampton Roads region, we're trending a little closer to that aging trend than the rest of the region. We're outpacing them a little bit. So that's surprising that through this process we didn't get more participants from that age range.
And how do we equate that with trying to induce the younger population?
Absolutely.
And what can we do as a city to really encourage more entrepreneurship and businesses that would attract young families? So,
Okay, so as far as our participation, should the ones that want to participate from planning speak up, or should I think Bill has expressed, and I'm not trying to volunteer him, but since he's retired, and he said
Well, what I had said is that I'm not picking on anybody, but I probably have more time than some people, and I'm perfectly willing to do it. And then I'll go way out on the limb and get myself in a lot of trouble, and I'm going to say I think the young lady to my right should not.
I don't think so
In
either.
your position
I was
is-
going to say, no, I've done it, and this is my last term, and reason I mentioned Bill too is because Bill will most likely be taking the reins. I'm hoping he will be because he's vice chair. So, I think he should definitely be one of the people. I was going to suggest him, and then, that's whoever else can feel like they can devote the time, because it is a great deal of time. You really can't miss a whole lot of meetings on it. You have to be pretty devoted to it and pretty faithful to it. So, if you think you're going to be missing a lot of time, you don't want to put yourself up for it.
And I would be willing to do that, and I'll
Yeah,
just
I
simply
know,
say
you'd
as
be,
politely as I can that although I'm retired now, I worked for a lot of years. and I don't have a heck of a lot of patience. I get behind it and I push. in other words, I expect the things to keep moving.
That's a good trait to have when it comes to doing this, I think, because if you sit around,
I won't get, not nastily, but, when we start things, we want to keep them moving. You keep the momentum, keep things done. Not rush it, but let's not let it slip either. We want to get where we're going when we can get there.
Right, that's right.
Now, I think we have a good group here. We'll see how I don't know these people. I'm not criticizing, so we'll see how they.
You can get bogged down in things that you don't need to get bogged down in.
Minutia.
And that's where the steering committee, I think, will come into play somewhat, because they can kind of keep that from happening. They
What will
have
be
the
staff's
experience
role
to do it.
during this,
Facilitators.
for everything?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll facilitate the community outreach meetings. We'll facilitate meetings of the steering committee, and hopefully make sure that communication's open and complete between all components of this update. But we'll also be, I guess, the draftsman, if you will, of a lot of the language, and get that back to the steering committee and the planning commission, who will, of course, be heavily involved during the entire process.
And what about recording staff? Do we have a secretary on this process?
In the past, I don't have you going to handle it this time.
Yeah.
In the past with the comp plan, we've done it in several ways. I know when we've done it at the high school, we would break up and there would be one facilitator and one recorder. And so each recorder would be responsible for the input that was in that room.
Right.
And then it would be
Be
combined.
volunteer recorders? Is that?
Well, we mainly had staff that did that.
Had staff did that,
Yes.
okay.
Now, and most of the facilitators were planning commission members. You guys were really the leaders. I mean, I've been through this process many times as
Right.
well, and the planning commission has always taken the lead and been responsible for getting that public input. So, that's how it's been done in the past, but we're always open to whatever you guys want to do.
We have had some large turnouts,
We've had some tremendous turnouts.
very large turnouts.
I'll speak for myself. I mean, I have Parkinson's, and so that kind of curbs me a little bit. And I travel a fair amount for my job, and that's another thing I think that could be prohibitive. But I wouldn't mind, like, volunteering, like, if you need somebody to do some particular, you can count on me for that. But I don't know if I really want to be a full-timer. I don't think I have the time.
I understand that.
But if, as I said, if you want me to do a particular chapter or group or meet, whatever, I don't mind doing something like that.
We'll see how it
I'll be
goes.
frank with you.
A lot of it will depend on how the Citizens Committee, will give them some freedom as how they want to operate.
Okay.
And they do have 12 members.
Right.
I do think that somebody from the steering committee needs to be there if they have a public meeting or something like that. Maybe we need to let them run it. We'll have to see how that
Okay.
pans out.
Kind of count on me, Bill, if you could, if you're involved in this and you're chairing this, for some participation, but not a member. Unless everybody else backs out or whatever, then I can do it. But, so,
Bonnie
No, you guys-
she can ask for volunteers because we have some members who are not here too.
The only thing that worries me a little bit is, due to work, I know a number of our members sometimes have a very difficult time, even sometimes getting to the meetings.
I'm still not been able to make them all this year. I traveled last week, I'm
it's
traveling next
hard.
week.
It's
Yeah.
hard because they travel and they work out of town, and it's difficult. So
Well, I'll raise
that's-
my hand. I'm not traveling anytime soon again, so I got to wait on my travel for the next 2 years. So I'd be more than willing to serve on the steering committee if that be a benefit, although my reservation is that I'm a newbie, and so
Oh, he can. He'll
I'm a quick
There's
learner.
there's a lot of good things to being a newbie.
Okay, so if you don't mind my questions.
No. Fresh blood fresh ideas is a good thing.
I agree. You need a real good cross-section.
I think so too. All
I was
right,
kind of hoping you'd say that.
so we've kind of got tentatively 2 people who are interested, and we may hopefully find a third that, and even, I know this, with our situation, and realistically, I'm thinking, and I hate to have to do this because of the continuity, and we hope everybody, there would be someone that felt like they could do each meeting. But possibly, I mean, it may be that we may have to sort of split that third. You know, and you may have to just sort of maybe one do 1 month.
we'll see.
And one, you know, we'll see.
see how it works.
If we can't, you know, get a third firm member, we could work something creative with,
We'll
you know,
figure it out.
like
Right.
Jay, you're talking about, you know,
Yeah,
you
glad
might
these-
not be able to do every meeting, but maybe we can work something out where you could do, you know, like one every other or however.
We'll figure it out.
And we could catch you up, Bill could catch you up on what was going on, and so that, you know, we'll just see. But right now, 2 is good, and then we have some other people who will be back at the meeting next time, so. Okay, all right, so is it anything else on that we need to do, or are we pretty much through on that?
I don't think so.
Seems like it's,
How does the city plan to notify these 12 folks that they've been selected and the 10 that have not been?
I've been thinking about that, if I may.
Certainly.
I've been thinking about that, because if you want to share these names with council on Monday evening, I'm concerned, I will send letters. However, letters sometimes take as much as 10 to 11 days to get to folks, even if you mail them inside the city. So what I would propose to do, if this is okay with Planning Commission, is to call each individual member and let them know that they have been chosen to serve, and that formal letter will be forthcoming.
Yes.
But I don't want to take a chance of them not knowing
before the meeting.
exactly.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think that's good, Vicki. That's very good.
What do you do with the guys that didn't make it? You
Yeah.
can contact them, or the alternates, or whatever we're calling 13th? Are you going to call them too and tell them that
But
they're
that's
alternates?
entirely
I don't think we're looking at alters. I think we're looking at 12 as enough
Just
for
at
the time
12.
being.
I see no way.
We do have to notify the other 10, these 5 plus 5, that did apply, that they weren't selected.
Right.
Yeah.
And a
Which I
letter.
will do.
Okay, good.
But I'm not going to call them individually.
No.
No, a letter would be
That's more than
sufficient.
fine.
I think that
And
would
as I say, that
suffice.
should encourage them to participate in
Absolutely.
whatever's going on later,
Absolutely.
public
Right.
hearings and those
Right.
sorts of things. We still want to be very much involved.
Would it be more helpful if it was attached by memo in the weekly report to city council instead of it actually being an item on the agenda?
We certainly can do that, yes, we can certainly do that. And that goes out, of course, on Thursdays to city council, so we can do that.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like
What do we
we're
think about
rushing you.
this?
We're rushing you to get this done
Yeah.
between now and Thursday, and I'm trying to avoid that.
Things that go up in city council are things that seem like they're open to debate more, are they not? In other words, this isn't open to debate, right? You're just telling them who's going to be on the committee.
This-
Right. So it's
Exactly.
good reason to
The only thing
do
we
what you
were going to
say.
ask for guidance on was the boards and commissions, but if we've narrowed that back down,
I don't think we even,
I think, to let them know that they will be a part of the process.
right.
So then you can slow up if you need to.
Let me give that some thought. I definitely want to call these folks, these top
Oh,
12.
yeah, let them know.
And
Vicki.
let them know
Yeah.
that they've been chosen and that a letter, formal letter will be forthcoming. And then I will definitely get a letter to all those that were not chosen.
Right.
And let's think about that.
Okay,
How
we'll
best way
figure
to
it out.
share that with council. Yeah.
Okay.
If that's
Just-
okay.
We'll probably get some guidance from the city.
I think perhaps
so.
we do on the chapter manager.
I think that would be good. Okay. And I guess next thing we can kind of mention, if you were wondering about the retreat that we went to, Bill and I attended last Tuesday night. It was quite lengthy. I think close to 3 hours, wasn't it,
It was
Bill?
over 2.
It was over 2.
Well, of course, some of it was, they got on their own agenda items. That's when I left.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I think Jack Tuttle is the man that facilitated it. He's a retired city manager of Williamsburg. And it was a series of questions. Vicki helped him with the recording of the answers, and it was they gave us each a colored square, which we had to hold up. Red was no, and green was yes, and if you were ambivalent, it was a yellow card. And the questions that were considered, I guess, are these ones that they handed out. I think that's what you wrote down, and if you didn't hear about it, I think Vicki sent out, or Evie sent out a little memo on it this week, if y'all had read it.
She said at the comment list.
The comment, yeah, okay. They just asked about the property on the north side of Victory Boulevard. That was the subject matter. what type of development would you like to see on that? And he told everyone just to throw out whatever they felt like would be a possibility, no matter what, just be creative. So there were a number of ideas that came out of that.
Who were all the attendees, if you don't mind me interrupting you?
We had members of City Council, we had members of the EDA, we had Debbie was there as a member,
That's good.
and Bill and I.
Randy was there,
Randy,
Judy was there.
Yeah,
That was
yeah. It was a rather large group.
Dave Callis was there.
Dave was there. So, but they asked about, it says what type of development should be avoided, and that was, he just wrote them up, Vicki wrote them on the sheets, and it was just sort of a brainstorming, idea of what, and you'd show your card, and if you were for it. And one thing that came out of it was, I think it was a general consensus that there could be public use, but there needed to be an element of private with that, a joint effort where the city did not have the whole burden of a public use out of the city's coffers. And the thing that he mentioned, Mr. Tuttle mentioned in Williamsburg, what is the name of that project up there, Debbie? Whisk, is it Whisk?
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned that. That was sort of a successful, I guess, public and private. Mm-hmm. But overall, most everyone was in agreement that they really would prefer a private use that would generate revenue for the city and not take expenditure from the city. Would be beneficial to the citizens, would generate much needed tax revenue, and, well, as I say, would be something that would be beneficial. We had some funny things that people wanted. I thought kind of interesting. Bass Pro, sporting goods. What type of theme did you want it to have? And I think a lot of people felt like a nautical type theme for a business or whatever went there would be interesting. But it was, it was worthwhile. And also at the end, Dave mentioned something too about big data. And that is that's an analytical thing, which y'all probably are very familiar with, to sort of pinpoint what types of businesses would be interested if we know what we want, which is the purpose of, things like what we did at the retreat. We pinpoint what we want to attract and what we don't want to attract. And then big data is an analyzing service that can gather the statistics and more or less help to attract what we have come up with that we want, the types of businesses that we would like to see come. Instead of something that just, shows up. We know what we'd like to have and go from there. We know what would be successful. We try to pinpoint what would be successful for our community. I was ridiculed during the break by one of the people in the audience, the audience participation was very slim. It wasn't a whole lot of the public there. It was a few people, but not a large public, because I made the comment that from past experience, I know what doesn't work here in the community. And that is things like I made the mention of antique stores, little antique shops, little specialty clothing stores, because the reason I know they don't work is because we have had them over the years, and I look around now and there are none here. They had to close their doors. So those things don't work. And we look around and we see things that do work, such as food places. They work. We know they work. We know that drugstores We have drugstores here that have been successful. We have grocery stores, and we have banks, and we have some offices, not a tremendous office thing. So we kind of have to think of what does work here in this community. And we want to be creative and have something come here that we don't have. Maybe that meets the need of the citizenry that we don't have. So it was an interesting evening. I think we had a nice chat.
It was interesting. You certainly got a feel for some of the themes that City Council thinks is important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we should be driven strictly by those themes. I think what we present as a comp plan needs to be the citizens' input, which may or may not completely agree with what the council come up with. I don't know. But we certainly got a good feel for what the City Council was talking about. Now, I wouldn't point out, to be clear, because I'm not sure I really understood till I got there. They were only talking about the 8 or so acres
Right.
across the street that would, for lack of better words, we'll call the Walmart project.
That was the only
They were
piece
not
of
talking
property.
about the entire Big
No.
Woods area. They were talking about that chunk.
That's right.
Where was this advertised? In other words, I was curious, you said how many citizens showed up. Where would the citizens have heard about
It was,
this?
put in the Daily Press, it was on our website. I sent about 50 letters out to people who had spoken over the last few months. Evie assisted me with that, to EDA, to the PC, and also to City Council. Facebook, Twitter, we touched TV, we touched about it.
And from the committees, the EDA and the Planning Commission, the chair and vice chair of each of those were scheduled to be participants in that process.
We cut off our subscription to Daily Press, and I don't think we should have done that. Because that's how I used to find out about a lot of stuff, and we don't have that anymore.
But it was just a brainstorming session. I mean,
That's
it
all it
wasn't.
was.
Yeah, and I'm just
Bonnie
thinking
said,
personally, I have
you
a
know, they got
my
to
own-
people got to show cards to show whether you supported something or not. But there are no formal votes.
No, it
So
was
there's no-
just
Well, I was just thinking my own
Formal
formal-
results from
I'm trying to think of the best way to. We're in this age where like you were talking about sending out these letters to these folks, and to me, the answer would be to email them. I mean, that's how I do all my work. But our business is based on that. This town's not all emailable, So I'm just trying to think about the best way for us to get, because we're right now at the start of an area where we're going to be trying to solicit lots of information to the citizens. It's tough. I mean, we're kind of in this limbo land where I think the web page is becoming more popular, but maybe not totally the answer. The papers, the press is having a hard time right now because people like myself don't want the hard copy anymore. Right? It's tough because
It's multi-channel.
exactly. Anyways, that's a whole problem in itself. I think that we have to deal with.
And it is very difficult to make sure you reach out to
Yeah.
every facet of the citizenry with the news, because you need
Yeah.
to do that.
Seems like these signs on the road when I leave are one of the best things sometimes every morning. I hate to say that, but I mean, I read all the signs. It says, keep Poquoson, there's a pickup cleanup thing going on, and I see those every day. Anyways, I'm digressing there.
There's a lot of things can happen.
All right. So with that said, I guess we probably should move on to, has anybody got anything else they want to add, or we're about ready to have our meeting?
Doesn't look like we have a large attendance.
But we got enough.
Are there enough of us?
Yeah.
Yes, we just need to
You don't need
that's
four.
okay.
It's okay with you, it's okay by us.
We don't care.
We're staying here?
Sounds good to
The
me.
table's up?
Yes, the table's not. Tomorrow.
Tonight.
Is this one of yours? Do you have one?
I got one.
Okay.
We can just jump up and say, sure. That's a shame the others not.
Always freezing
I know,
here.
I do too.
I'm cold. Huh? Oh, okay. I think it's cold